Hey guys, Movie Fan here to continue our little Power Rangers countdown. Now, we all know that when Power Rangers first came out, we all were blown away by the Megazord battles. And back then, most of us had no idea that the Megazord battles were not made here in America. In fact, they were actually made in Japan. So basically, what we were seeing was mostly stock footage. At that time, we didn't know that because we were kids and, the internet was barely getting started and nobody really talked about it back then. So obviously, it's no secret. When it comes to the Megazord battles, it's usually stock footage from Japan. However, what most people don't seem to pick up on is that there's actually three things that was actually done by us and not by Super Sentai. The first one would be the famous calling of the Zords scene that was used in Season 2, when they would go from Dinozords to Thunderzords. I'm sure we all know this one.
Master Lion Thunderzord power!
Pterodactyl Firebird Thunderzord power!
Triceratops Unicorn Thunderzord power!
Saber-tooth Tiger Griffin Thunderzord power!
Tyrannosaurus Red Dragon Thunderzord power!
Now, I'm sure we all know it and remember it really well because this is quite legendary. But here's the thing that most people don't ever bother to bring up. The fact that this transformation going on here is definitely not Super Sentai. It's Saban's doing all the way. Because in Super Sentai Gosei Dairanger, the calling of the Zords is a lot different. In fact, this is how it goes.
キリン将来聖騎士聖天馬聖キリン流星王
So obviously you got a very big difference here. And you could tell clearly that how they did the transformation sequence, it is definitely stop motion animation for all the original Dinozords. Again, nobody calls that out, but I think we're all pretty much aware that it's got to be our doing. There's no way Super Sentai did that. But I'm calling it out anyway because, hey, somebody's got to. Now that we're done with that little opener, let's get to the part that nobody seems to pick up on. And that's the fact that in Season 2 and the beginning of Season 3, we actually get two Megazord battles that, well, was actually not made in Japan. In fact, they were actually made here in America. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they had a little help, though, because, well, you'll see. At the end of Season 2, in the three-part episode A Friend in Need, which was a backdoor pilot for Masked Rider, in parts 2 and 3, Kimberly and the Power Rangers face off against a new monster created by Zenrita called Repellitor. Obviously, looking at him, you could tell that he's definitely not Super Sentai. Well, technically no, because obviously that's just Silverhorns painted green and given a long tongue. Obviously, Repellitor is a creature I'm going to have to talk about, but that'll be for another day. When you see the Power Rangers fight Repellitor in their Megazords, you could tell that that is definitely not Super Sentai footage. How do I know? It's quite simple. Obviously, one, I looked up every episode of Dairanger, and that never came up. But actually, no, I didn't have to, because I could tell by the footage it was definitely our doing. Because if you take a close look at the Super Sentai footage, you could tell that the grain structure in the film is far different from what we had going on in the 90s, because technically the Super Sentai footage was a few years older. So that's how you could tell when you got footage from Japan and footage from America. Most people don't ever consider that, but if you're like me and you pay close attention to this kind of stuff, you pick up on it in no time flat. Anyway, you could tell that the footage of them fighting Repellitor is almost HD quality, actually. That's what it looks like, HD. And you can tell the fighting methods are very different because they're not stomping on buildings at all. In fact, they're stomping around in, well, an open area. In fact, it almost looks like they're somewhere in the mountains right next to the plains. And like I said, you could tell that the camera angles were very different from how Super Sentai would do it. And there would be one more time that we had a Megazord battle done here in America. And that would be the first episode of Power Rangers Season 3. Better known as Ninja Quest Part 1, where the Thunder Megazords go up against an ambush and they're completely destroyed. Now, this one was kind of different because they used a mixture of stock footage and footage that we created. Obviously, you could see the stock footage when Rito Revolvo is knocked down, or when he's firing his weapons, and when the Thunder Megazords are firing their weapons. That's stock footage, and doing certain poses, of course. But then you got the scenes where Rito is fighting the Thunder Megazords, and so are the other monsters who were clearly from Season 1. That is definitely our doing. And of course, when they fall apart, that is all our doing. Because it's not in Super Sentai. And of course, who could forget when Titanus returned for Season 3? Now, this is probably the cheapest version out there, because obviously when the Ninja Megazord or the Shogun Megazord land on Titanus, you could tell that is just the toys. And pretty much there's not much more I could say about that one. So here we have 3 moments where Saban actually did some work for the Zords. How they managed to get the rights to do this, and how they managed to get the costumes to do this, is beyond me. But obviously he must have made some kind of a deal, and I wish he had done more deals with them like this. That way we could get more American footage rather than just stock footage, you know? There were other moments where we got Zord footage that was made in America, but anyway, my point is not to cover really all that, but just to show you that this did actually happen. And fans need to realize this, and they definitely need to remember that this actually happened. Stay tuned because there's going to be more Power Ranger videos to come. But until then, this is Movie Fan signing off.